Ah, so hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina, Kristina, and this is where we read books, talk about books. There's no special effects, there's no special editing, there's nothing special going on here. We just read books and talk about books, and because we like the series books, we like to read the character progression from book to book to book. And that's why we do Star Trek Next Generation on Fridays, because we go through the episodes. We have character progression from episode to episode. There may be only one plot line per story per episode, unless it's a two-parter, but then we get character progression. And this week or coming up, Wesley's final episode for a regular recurring character. Very sad. We gotta do that. So, I've got this fantasy going. Please hit the like and subscribe if I'm doing a good job or not. I've got this fantasy. It's all up to you. You're the only one that can do it. I can't do it, but you can do it. I'd like to hit 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. I don't think it's possible. We are going into 11 months of doing this, and I'm only a little over 100. And those of you who are subscribers, thank you very much. It's all up to you. I need your help. So, anyways, trying to summarize this book has been hard, but we'll try. We're doing Steve Berry, the 14th Colony. And I will confess that when I saw this, I don't know why, but I was thinking of Okanoke. I was thinking of the Okanokes. But so we've got some interesting things going on in this book. Oh. Well, I had my notes organized. I'm not organized anymore. Alright, wait a second. Okay. So I am not in the least bit organized. Oh, and I forgot the sniffles. I put the heat on. Steve Berry, the 14th Colony. Like I said, I don't know why, but I was thinking the Okanokes, North Carolina. But anyway, apparently we wanted to make Canada the 14th colony. So you have to try and read, well, you have to read the book, but I'll explain a little bit, but you probably will get more from the book. But what does Canada, Russia, nuclear bombs, and the 20th Amendment to the Constitution have in common? That's the question posed here. What do they have in common? Okay. So we travel most of the book and don't know. So our reoccurring characters, and we have some new ones, but we have some Patton, of course, our head guy. Stephanie, of course, his boss. Bruce Litchfield is the outgoing attorney general who may or may not be crooked. Danny Daniels, the president. Luke Daniels is the nephew of the president. My nose. Anya Petrov is the lover of Zorn, who's a major character in this book. Cassiopeia is Cotton's co-worker. NIKOLAS OSIN is a Russian trade KGB person who's has some alliances with us. Fritz STROBL is the curator, and Peter HEDLUND is the historian, and those are some important people. So I'm trying not to get out of order here, but I might have to. it apparently, we wanted to make Canada the 14th colony. And let me see what this. The American Revolution officially ended in 1783, but hostilities with England continued for many more decades. The British covertly supported Indian aggression along America's borders, trying to prevent any further western expansion. They forbade some exports to their western Indies colonies. When England and France went to war, the United States proclaimed its neutrality, even though France continued to hold a special place in American hearts thanks to its support during the Revolution. And don't forget to check out the Patriot That video where I talk about the French Jewish guy, who funded and paid for the American Revolution and is a recognized patriot of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So check it out, the Patriot That. I like to read books in order, and that was the first book I read of this author, and I have since decided to go back and read them all in order, or semi-order anyways, because like I said, I'm a serious person and I like progression. But that was an amazing book, and I like getting to know the characters. You'll have to check it out, because and the 13 stars on the back of the dollar bill are in the shape of the Star of David, and if you outline the pyramid thing, it says Mason. All these little conspiracy theories. But when Britain ultimately blockaded French ports, the Embargo Act of 1807 halted trade with England. In a response, the Royal Navy started boarding American ships and impressing sailors into service. That's when Canada became important. During the Revolution, the Continental Army had invaded, the idea being to convince the French-speaking Canadians to join in the fight against the British. But the Americans were soundly defeated in 1775 during the Battle of Quebec. At the 1785 Paris peace talks, negotiators tried in vain to have all the Quebec province over as war spoils. But that effort failed. America's desire for Canada was so strong that in the Articles of Confederation adopted in 1781, one provision provided that the British-held Canada, if so desired, could join the new union automatically without a vote from other states. Tensions finally reached a boiling point in 1812 when the United States declared war on England. President James Madison and his war hawks in Congress urged that the time had come to defend the country's recently won independence, but the vote to go to war only narrowly passed. Critics condemned Mr. Madison's war as foolhardy adventure, motivated less by patriotism and more by expansionism, and the offensive began with an invasion of Canada. So they tried to invade Canada. The American forces were poorly equipped and poorly numbered, with fewer than 7,000 men, most of them untrained and lacking in discipline. They were led by an aging general named William Hull, whose own subordinates damned him as an imbecile after an abortive foray across the Detroit River into Canada. Hull was duped into thinking that a vast Indian war party was heading his way, so he surrendered his 2,500 troops to a much smaller British force. With the war only a few months old, the entire Michigan territory fell into enemy hands. In 1815, America abandoned its hope that Canada would become part of the United States. Peace reigned between the two neighbors by the 20th century. At the length of 5,522 miles, Canada and the United States shared the longest non-militarized border in the world. No one gave the other a bad thought, except during World War II. With the Battle of Britain raging in 1940, the prospect of Hitler taking England loomed large. The United States had proclaimed its neutrality as both the American people and Congress wanted to stay out of the war, which I think was a really bad idea considering all the people that died over there in Germany. That's just horrible. So anyways, for the United States, securing Canada became a priority to prevent it from becoming a staging area for a German attack. Beaches were identified that could be used for amphibious landings. A strategy of preemptive takeover was devised. A 94-page document outlined plans for stopping overseas reinforcements by taking the port of Halifax, then seizing hydraulic power plants at Niagara Falls, while the Navy blockaded all of Canada's Atlantic and Pacific ports. So that's all going on. Then then later on, there's this society. General Society of the Cincinnati, as formed by the officers of the Army of the U.S. at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, which gave independence to America, and it's a journal kept by Benjamin Talmadge of New York, a spy master from the Revolutionary War. The society developed the invasion plans in 1812. We were charged with the task by James Madison. He wanted it done in secret. At the time, most of our members were Revolutionary War veterans. Some even fought in the 1775 Canadian campaign. Our plan was viable, but the Army and Navy were simply incapable of executing. We weren't the military power we thought ourselves to be. That's ancient history, Luke said. What about invading Canada in 1940? We prepared that plan too. For the War Department in secret, Roosevelt was familiar with the society. Some of his closest aides were members. He liked the fact that we kept the Revolutionary War alive through descendants. He was told of our work during the War of 1812. I wonder, I will have to check. I had not thought to check this sooner, but I wonder if Roosevelt's ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War. We will have to check that. I have not looked. I could look and check that. Daughters of the American Revolution.org. Help yourself. He was told of our work during the War of 1812. Like Madison, Roosevelt wanted to be ready, and he did not want the War Department involved with drawing up the plans to invade an ally. So he came to us, and we worked up a workable strategy out of the limelight. So that's this big Talmadge journal. Talmadge headed our efforts in 1812 on drawing those Canadian invasion plans for Madison. He recorded his work in a journal. It's one of only a handful of sensitive documents that the Society ever possessed, passed through the Keeper of Secrets. It's nothing sinister really, we just thought it was best that it never be available for public inspection. So, we wanted Canada to be the 14th colony a few times in our history. Then, see, there are these bad guys. ZORIN has this idea that if you blow up the White House during the inauguration, then there'll be no leader of the United States. Apparently, the 20th Amendment, so the Constitution originally provided that a president would be elected in November and assume office the following March 4th. Eventually, those ensuing 4 months proved a problem. 7 states succeeded during the time between Buchanan's exit and Lincoln's arrival. The Great Depression deepened, waiting for Roosevelt to take control from Hoover. A lame duck president, right or wrong, came to be perceived as no more than a default leader. his opinion irrelevant, while the incoming president suffered from not yet being legally empowered to do anything. The 20th Amendment changed all that, ending a president's term precisely at noon on January 20th. Acts of Congress followed that required the incoming president be provided a full transition team. All right, I lost my place. Lost family incident. So where was it? The 20th Amendment changed all that, ending a president's term precisely at noon on January 20th. Acts of Congress followed that required the incoming president be provided a full transition team, access to all government services, training for new personnel, and funding to handle all and any and all costs. She knew what would happen at 12:01 p.m. Sunday, just after the oath, President Warner Scott Fox took the oath. Files and records that had not already been removed would immediately be purged. Access codes and passwords would be changed. And it goes on. However, where is, the situation that comes up. The issue of succession for the United States presidency has been a thorny subject since the drafting of the Constitution in 1787. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 provides that to be eligible to serve as president, you must be natural born, 35 years of old, and been a resident in the United States 14 years. In cases of removal, death, resignation, or inability to discharge the duties of a president, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 names the vice president in the line of succession. 7 American presidents have died in office, and each time vice presidents took the oath and served out that president's unexpired term. Whether that vice president actually became president or merely acting president has long been a matter of constitutional debate. No one knows for sure. The issue was finally resolved with the 1967 ratification to the 25th Amendment, which clarified Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6, designating the vice president the actual president if the president dies, resigns, or is removed from office. That amendment also required any vice presidential vacancies to be filled by the president and confirmed by Congress. Previously, when a vice president had succeeded to the presidency or otherwise left the office empty, the vice presidency remained vacant until the next presidential election. In 1974, Gerald Ford was the first to become vice president and ultimately president through the 25th Amendment. This is all well-settled American law, and most of the confusion that once existed around a vice president's ascendancy to the presidency is gone. But what about others succeeding to the presidency when there is no vice president available? It is the 20th Amendment that deals with this contingency. That amendment also addresses issues of succession that occur before a president and vice president are sworn in. The terms of the president and vice president shall end at noon on the 20th day of January. If at that time fixed for the beginning of the term of the president and vice president-elect shall have died, the vice president-elect shall become president. If a president shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president until a president shall have qualified, and the Congress by law provide for the case wherein a president-elect nor a vice president-elect shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as president, or the manner in which one who is to act shall be selected, and such person shall act accordingly until the president or vice president shall have qualified, with the F. However, it is clear from this constitutional amendment that the term of a president ends precisely at noon on January 20. By implication, the term of the next president should begin simultaneously. Second, if the president-elect dies before the term begins, the vice president-elect becomes president on January 20 and serves the full term to which the president-elect had been elected. If on January 20th a president has not been chosen or the president-elect does not qualify for the office, the vice president acts as president until a president is chosen or the president-elect qualifies. Finally, Congress can provide by law for cases in which neither a president-elect nor a vice president-elect is eligible or able to serve. This last contingency was expounded on by Congress in the 1947 Presidential Succession Act, which lays out the line of succession in cases where there is no president or vice president, either before or after being sworn in. First in line comes the Speaker of the House of Representatives, then the President pro tempore of the Senate. After are various cabinet officers in a set order, beginning with the Secretary of State, the Treasury, Defense, the Attorney General, and on down, ending with the Secretary of Veterans Affairs being the 16th in line of succession. To be eligible to succeed, the cabinet officers must meet constitutional requirements of being president and must have been appointed by and within the advice and consent of the Senate. So, there's this whole thing that if a president dies in office, clearly under the 25th Amendment, the vice president becomes president and serves out the remaining term. If a vice president dies in office under the same amendment, the president and the Congress choose a replacement who serves out the remaining term. If the president-elect dies before taking the oath of office, the 20th Amendment provides that the vice president-elect becomes president. But what happens when both the president-elect and the vice president-elect die before noon on January 20? The 20th Amendment fails to address the possibility. Instead, the amendment empowered Congress to provide the answer, which became the Presidential Succession Act of 47. But the act would not solve anything relative to this catastrophic scenario. Instead, under the statute as it is presently drafted, the United States would be plunged into a political and legal chaos. And that's what the guys wanted. That's what Zorn wants to do. That's his whole purpose. Apparently, there were some, in the beginning of the book, you'll have President Reagan talking with the Pope, and there are these nuclear missiles that go missing and are unaccounted for 50, 60 years. And Zorn's idea is to kill everybody who attends the swearing-in ceremony, to get the current president, current VP, and the incoming president and incoming VP, and the Speaker of the House and a couple others all in one line, and to plunge into political disasterness. And that's Zorn's plan. And he's going to use some hidden nuclear weapons. Apparently, the Russians hid them in Canada. That doesn't make a hill of beans of sense, but it's the storyline, and it works. Oh, I know, because that's where the Russian guy went with him. Okay. So, it's really interesting. And we also talk about the Canada thing. During the War of 1812, we called up to help the country in a capacity that was in conflict with our new charter. Many of our members had fought in the Revolutionary War. James Madison was President of the United States. He wanted a war with Great Britain, and he got it. Then he wanted Canada invaded. That was the closest British territory, so he asked the society to draw up an invasion plan. And that's what the Talmadge thing is all about. It's an invasion plan. And we'll end our story with this. A true account of any and all activities of the Society of Cincinnati as performed for the government of the United States and the governments of the several states during the last and Great War with British, lasting from June 8, 1812 to February 17, 1815, meant to record and memorialize these events so that a full understanding of their many intents and purposes shall be clear to all those who might question. Let it be said that every member of this society is a true, loyal patriot, and our only desire was to serve our country with honor and distinction. Benjamin Talmadge, August 8, 1817. On the evening of August 24th, 1814, a shameful thing occurred, one I am sad to say I lived long enough to witness. Within the capital city, cannon fire had roared for most of the day, and when the explosion stopped, the local residents were left in fearful fluctuation, fondly hoping that their countrymen had prevailed, then awfully fearing that all was lost. They soon discovered that the dust beginning to rise above the forest in the thick clouds rapidly advancing came from British forces. Sadly, American soldiers fled the capital. The cry, "Ruffians are at hand," could be heard from men on horseback as they rode away. Inside the executive mansion, Dolly Madison awaited the return of her husband, President James Madison, who had left 2 days earlier to visit the front. He was due back by nightfall, and a meal had been prepared for him and his contingent, which he never got to eat. And she took all the stuff out of the White House that she could get into wagons and left. But it's a really good, interesting story, and I will point out, for those of you who don't know, it's in large print, one of my favorite types of books. Steve Berry, The 14th Colony. You'll have to ask yourself, what does Canada, nuclear bombs, Russia, and the 20th Amendment have in common? Well, it's in here. It's a good read. I hope you enjoy it. If you stayed with me this long, please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. It's just me reading books, talking books. No special effects going on here. So I hope you enjoyed our little review and talk about this book, about the Cotton and his gang pursuing and saving the President of the United States and gaining favor with the new President of the United States. So we'll see what happens. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Thank you.